about your experiences with therapy?
For me, man, I think my first session, I had like a 30-minute consultation, and I thought it was great because I was able to, like, for the first time, like, relax and just kind of share with someone that was outside my immediate circle what my life was all about. And I felt like just having him listen to what I was going through as a black male, I was like, dang, this is how therapy should go. Because I took a little while kind of selecting who my therapist would be, because I really needed someone that was like closer to my age and kind of understood, but at the same time, somebody that could listen and really take time to understand where I'm at, so I could like navigate my mind and navigate my actions and make life a little bit more simple. So my first session was kind of straight.
Chris,
Honestly, most recent as an adult. For me, growing up, I was one of those guys who always felt like they had everything going for themselves, everything in line, everything worked out. But mental health has become number one priority as an adult, especially with things going on and rising in the country now, So to me, that first session, man, I was telling offline, I was talking to a wig, and I was telling him that first session, I left so full and understanding the reason I am the way I am. I was able to kind of open up some doors and kind of realize the reason I move and operate and even communicate the way I do. So it was
So unlike the first two people, I didn't sign up for therapy. My job offers it through our interdisciplinary team. We have a psychiatrist on staff, and it just happened that we were just riding in the car talking, and it just got to a point where we just started talking about personal stuff, and he was sharing stuff with me, I was sharing stuff with him. But we got out of the car and we started feeling a lot better about it. Well, I started feeling a lot better about everything we talked about. I got a different perspective and understanding because my therapist, what I would say, was a 65-year-old white man. Mm-hmm. So for me, sometimes hearing what your own people say all the time and having something to relate to helps, but sometimes you get to see it through other people's eyes, like from another spectrum, and you can realize what felt normal to you isn't normal anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that was my first session with therapy.
In ways, I know you share a similar experience.
Yeah, mine was actually similar to O. Right. It was by circumstance. I had came back from China, and I was just going through some crazy mental battles, bro. Getting back into marriage and just trying to figure out life. And I actually talked to a friend that I didn't even know he was a therapist, but we were just talking through it, and got to the point to where he was just like, yo, you should see a therapist. And then me being black growing up, I'm just like, yo, that means I'm crazy now, Yeah. And so I automatically thought about that. And then he just really talked about the context of therapy. And then after my first session, initially, I wanted a black male. But I actually fell into what you were saying as far as having somebody with that different perspective. And it ended up to where he went to HBCU and all this, but I could always relate on that side, but also he could really share some things that was a little bit different. So,
even with myself, had my first therapy session earlier this year. I was a black male psychologist, which was a rare find for me. But one thing I enjoyed about it was the efficiency of it. He valued my time. I was able to connect with him on a level that I really can't understand. It was kind of like I was speaking to myself, but the older me. And so without having to dig deep, not even about digging deeper, but without having to even explain some things, he was able to finish my sentences of what it felt like as a black man from a different point of view, right? And so it's kind of like only a black man can really understand it. Only a black man can really understand the pressures and the weight that you carry. You can't read that in a book, right? You only can feel it. And so that was my first experience. And then currently right now, me and my father are in therapy together. So we're doing father and son therapy with a black female therapist. And it's been the process with my father has been crazier than my own individual journey. Because me and my father's relationship has always been like a tough relationship. You know what I'm saying? And you spoke in previous seasons about relationship with your father, but I feel like mine was deep. I mean, even my dad opened up about stuff that I never in a million years would have thought that. Stuff that he went through. And so it transformed the relationship because it's no longer a father and son relationship now. It's like this individual's been vulnerable. I know his past, I know his history.
Yeah.
So now I'm able to understand like why he did the things that he did.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, it's an actual reason why like you left. It's an actual reason why you abandon others, because you deal with a sense of abandonment from yourself.
Yeah.
And you're an individual who is 55 plus years old, and so it's like now I'm able to be empathetic. And so now I'm able to like go through the process and trust the process and heal and express myself and divulge things that I had on my chest for I'm 29 years old, things for well over 20 years, the things I never said, things I never even expressed. And so I believe like black people ask me about therapy, and I say it's a healing cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want healing, go to therapy.
For sure.
Like don't look at it as anything else. Don't think about the things that people told you in the past. If you want to heal, go talk to somebody.
Yeah, man. And like you said, like black people think I am black people. Like the only reason I had that therapy session is because it just happened by circumstance. Because me, I'm the type of person that I'm going to try to help everybody, but I'm going to think I can carry my weight, your weight, and I'm going to hold it in, continue to hold it in until my release. And I always tell people my therapy is sports. You know what I'm saying? And I go play sports, and I play till I almost pass out. But I thought I felt better, you know what I'm saying, by doing that. But some stuff you just can't let go, and then you end up projecting, your anger on other people, because a lot of times we're taught to build up anger. You know what I'm saying? We can't cry.
Yeah.
Right.
We can't, talk about our problems. We can't whine too much. But what we can do is be mad and be like masculine, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what I thought was my release until, that day happened. And, he would tell me like, yo, what we did, we just had a session, bro. He was like, this is a free service. Anytime you want to talk about stuff, come to my office, talk to me. Like you said, it just allowed me to feel like full, but also have a sense of release. Like I let some weight off my shoulders. And then once I realized some of the things that I didn't know were problems, then I was able to actually tell somebody else, like, yo, I'm gonna need you to lay off on me a little bit, telling me all your problems, because I got you and I'll carry you, but I can't hold but so much.
I was saying, I have a saying like self-preservation is key. Like it sounds selfish, but it's not, because you can't help anybody else. You can't be a good father. You can't be a good husband. You can't be a good boyfriend if you're always giving yourself away. Then you really are not able to prioritize that energy, those feelings, and that role. Right? You got to prioritize your roles in life in order to be an efficient person. So what I ask to the group is, and how you can start with this one, is like, why is therapy taboo in our culture?
Man. Honestly, that's a good one, man. All right, let me jump on this one first, and then I'll come back to that one. Because he said something that was very, very important. And you kind of piggybacked on that one as well. We were speaking of how you can't help someone, unless you are filled, so to speak. So that's the reason why I jumped into therapy. It was sought that how I operate is I'm always willing to pour into everybody, And it gets to a point where in life where you can't pour into anybody else because you're empty. I was at that empty point in life. And so it was sought, like I said, my girl, she saw it, she was like, hey, you should really do therapy or just try it. And she's done therapy before. Right. And in my eyes, I was like, nah, it was something like, therapy, it's weak. I'm good, mentally I'm good. She's like, I knew it would turn into couples therapy. So here we are, I'm thinking of, as far as me and her becoming a better union. And it got to the point where certain questions was, it was pivoted into my childhood and bringing up my upbringing, so that kind of opened doors that I never thought of, on a deeper level. So it was important,
Yeah, and just to bring in the taboo side of it, I feel like even when I look at the dynamics of therapy, just in the Black culture holistically, like it's just this. I mean, take it back, right? So you got to think about access, right? Like if you don't have access to something, like obviously you're not going to be educated on it. And then you think about the narrative that is displayed as far as like a single mom, right? It's just like, one, I don't have money to pay for this type of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's no individuals in this space to even share with my young man or my son, whatever it is. And I feel like I'm actually optimistic as we go into this day and age with like the awareness to mental health. But I feel like a lot of it had to do with access, education. I see a lot of people get, like you talked about, not having any black, therapists or just any individual. Now we have individuals to pull from. But one thing that you said, just going back to what your dad, like I wish
Oh man,
we had that. Man, me and my dad's relationship would have been completely different
Right, yeah.
than me. And honestly, probably the way I treated, you talk about just, keeping that whatever it is inside and just negative energy a lot of times. I'll probably display that to some of my relationships with ladies and all this stuff,
Absolutely.
just
Right.
because it was contained and I
Right.
didn't know how to channel it. I didn't have anybody to speak to. And I feel like that's where I've learned through therapy, both on an individual level and then also in my marriage as well. Like, man, we got to the point to where it was rocky.
Yeah,
If it wasn't for my pastor and we had a couples therapy, bro, we wouldn't be here, And it's just like, you got to get to that point where you open up those layers, and it's just like,
And you have to have an unbiased partner.
yeah,
You
sure.
can't talk to your homegirl, you can't talk to your homeboy all the time. You gotta have somebody there that don't know you,
Yeah.
but is able to look at you organically. Like the next question I asked too is, how does one go about finding a therapist? That's like everybody like to talk about therapy and you should do this, you should do that. But what are some of the tools that you all use to find one?
So I can just talk about my personal journey, just how I literally started with a Google search, just off rip, and I literally Googled what I was struggling with, right? Like maybe like some anxiety or something like that. Because if you look up like black therapists or therapists in general, they'll always have like these categories that they specialize in, right? So I picked a couple of them and then I called them and just had a conversation with them just off that initial like, if you call somebody you can get that initial like feel or whatever. And so I literally went from like that funnel process down to a couple of people, and then I just asked them, hey man, can I have a consultation with you or whatever about kind of the things that I'm dealing with. One person didn't call me back, so that was a definite no. And then the person that did call me back, he like had a professional, he was professional with it. He reached out to his secretary. She scheduled for me to have the the conversation with him, the 30-minute conversation, and from that 30-minute conversation. Like you guys were saying, I was literally able to like unpack just in that 30-minute conversation, and it felt like a decompression. Like, I went into it kind of heavy because at that time, like you said, you was empty. I went into it like heavy already, and so for him to just recognize and give me that time, it was just like a welcoming portion of that. So that's how I like broke it all down. And so I'll have my second full session coming up. So that's how
I found both of my sessions via recommendation.
Yeah.
So sometimes, if you know anybody that's been to therapy, you can ask them. I used the site. I was in a relationship prior to, and she was in the therapy session, and so I used her therapist to provide me with a recommendation.
that's good.
And so sometimes it helps to like, if you know like your friend trusted somebody, eventually, like a lot of times the Black therapy or just a therapy network is so small that they can automatically directly refer somebody to you. So, also going through a recommendation.
Yeah, I think another point that you brought up too is like just really understanding the ROI on it. Like, what do you want out of it, right? Because you can't just go somewhere and then like they talk about relationships, but I'm not in a relationship, just because they Black type of thing. So I think that my intentionality to doing that was why I found the right therapist. Because initially, and I said it earlier, but I thought I wanted a Black male that could relate to me, but that's not what I needed in this season. What I needed in this season was like growth in an area where it was a Caucasian dude that didn't come from my world, and I feel like I tried the Black therapist and it was cool. I was just like, it's too comfortable. It's too comfortable.
Yeah.
It wasn't pushing me.
I think it matters what type of person you are and what you need at that time. Like,
Absolutely.
a lot of my friends I feel like are controversial. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like people that always agrees with everything I say. You know what I'm saying? So I guess you don't. I don't know. But what I'm saying is like, you don't want somebody that's, well, for me personally, I don't want somebody that can relate to everything that I have. I want somebody to tell me, like, Oscar, this is, like, prime example, I was talking about how, like, social media can really get you down sometimes. And about what you have on your on like on your wall or on your story or your
Comparing
page.
yourself.
And it was like some years ago, I was just like, man, all I see is twerking and fights. And my man told me, he said, yo, my wall don't look like that.
Right.
And it just opened my mind, like, dang.
Because I'm following some people.
So from that moment, I just started, every time somebody posted a fight, I'm following. Every time somebody twerking something, I'm following. And like you said, you literally are feeding your mind all the time.
Yeah.
So you're processing information. So what
Yeah.
you see,
Yeah.
what you digest. You know what I'm saying?
And one, let me cut you off.
Right?
One major question I did want to have to go off before we wrap up is, how does someone prepare themselves for a therapy session? Right, because this is something, especially if it's something new that you're walking into, right? Is it, for myself, like a lot of times, like I just like to just go into it, like, go after work. Sometimes I've heard people say, like, I like to go before work to kind of release and get started throughout the day. Is there anything in particular you all do personally to kind of mentally prepare yourself for a therapy session?
Yeah, well, now I'm just kind of used to it, right? But I think in the beginning stages, I had to get to this point of like, how do you get to where you're vulnerable, right? Like, whatever you can do to prepare, whatever that is. And I feel like one of the things that I think you brought up as far as like talking to somebody that is in that space or like went through, you trust them, that is a vulnerable moment because you're saying like, hey, I am not well, I need help, I need what you have. Whatever you're doing, I want to get there. And so I think over time, you just get to the point, and then comfortability, I just think building a relationship, like I said, the guy that I first had, it wasn't a good relationship, and then I got out, and so just really being aware and that vulnerability.
I like to say this. I'm sorry. So I like to say this, going back to your dad, right? Me and my dad's relationship was rocky as well. But the thing was, he actually showed me vulnerability, which made me think that I could be like that. And so I was talking to him one day, and he literally gave me a moment in that hour conversation that we had. That I was like, dang, this is possible that this dude is like a human being. You know what I'm saying? So like all of the stuff that he did, I could literally see why he did it. And so I was like, well, if he can do that as a 60-year-old man, I can do that in a therapy session, maybe not with my dad, but he literally gave me the key and access to be like, it's okay to be vulnerable. You know
Which piggybacks on the importance of mirroring and modeling, right?
Right.
Because for individuals who have kids, it's important to show your child exactly what they're able to be, right? Because you're the main example that they have. Either you're going to teach them, social media is going to teach them,
Right.
or people at school are going to teach them.
Sure.
And so like, you really have to make the decision within ourselves to be good role models to siblings, to children, to nieces, to nephews,
Because they watch
whatever
it
it may be.
regardless.
Because they watch it. So
Yeah.
since they're watching regardless, why not give them a good show? Something positive that they can go off of. And I think to sum it all up, I believe that we agree in unison that therapy is vitally important to us in the community because it piggybacks more on our healing.
Yes.
As individually, but also as a community.
Right.
Because we have to begin to heal. We have to set an example and show people that going to therapy is not taboo. It's the thing to do. In order for you to progress and move forward, to be that titan that you want to be on your job, in your career, extracurricular wise, you have to be able to unpack some baggage in order for you to be able to let some things in.
Agreed.
And so, we have to continue to just push our friends, push our families, and most importantly, push ourselves.
Absolutely.
Just because you did a therapy session 2019 or you did a series of sessions doesn't mean in 2021 you may not need therapy again.
Right.
It doesn't mean that whenever you're about to get married, you don't need to go to marriage counseling, right?
Yeah.
So we have to continue to grow in all areas, just not individually, but to also grow whenever you're growing in unison.
And then can we mention just a little piece of therapy does not always have to be traditional.
Right.
For some people, they do not have the means to pay
Correct.
for
Because we can't ignore the monetary expense.
So then you look for wise counsel.
Yep.
You can, if you're in a church and involved in a church, you go to a pastor. If the pastor's too busy, you go to his associates.
Yep.
There's other options out there. So there's always free options for therapy too, and we want people to realize that.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to talk to somebody. Somebody going to always hear your words, and so you just have to be responsible about who you give that to. You know what I'm saying? And so be prepared for that responsibility. That's very good.
Yep.
Very good advice.
And the key spirit is, man, I believe that if you do things on the vulnerability and the ability to open yourself up to be vulnerable, to expose yourself, to take a risk, right? because like vulnerability opens the door up to risk of getting your feelings hurt, risk of hurting, risk of causing yourself more pain if you're already in pain, right? But I believe that risk is something worth taking, and that's the only way as a community we can move forward is by taking risks, being vulnerable, and healing ourselves.
I risk, I reward.
I risk, I reward.